So as predicted, as it's been informed now that Joe Biden has basically hit the nuclear launch button as his final days, as he's heading off to the Amazon, probably looking for Predator, probably looking for ice cream. I don't know what the hell he's doing. But his administration on his final days, because they're so worried, they're so genuinely paranoid on another Trump presidency, that they have inevitably put us at bay of possible nuclear warfare. And I wish I could say that's a hyperbole, but it isn't. So take a look at this. This is from the BBC, where it has been announced Ukraine fires U.S. supplied longer range missiles into Russia, Moscow says. Ukraine has fired U.S. supplied longer range missiles at Russian territory for the first time, the Russian government said, a day after Washington gave its permission for such attacks. That's when Biden announced that in his final days he's going to do it. U.S. officials also confirmed the use of Army tactical missile systems to CBS News, the BBC's U.S. partner. Ukraine has not commented. Russia's defense ministry said the strike had targeted the Bryansk region bordering Ukraine to the north on Tuesday morning. It has said 5 missiles have been shot down and one has caused damage, with its fragments starting a fire at a military facility. But 2 U.S. officials said initial indications suggest Russia had intercepted just 2 missiles out of the round 8 fired by Ukraine. The BBC has not been able to independently verify the contracting figures. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused Washington of trying to escalate the conflict. The ATACMS that was used repeatedly overnight against the Bryansk region is, of course, a signal that the United States wants escalation, he said. And without the Americans' use of these high-tech missiles, as Russian Vladimir Putin has said many times, is impossible. He said Russia would proceed from the understanding and that the missiles were operated by American military experts. We will be taking this as a renewed face of the Western war against Russia, and we will react accordingly, he told a press conference at the G20 in Rio de Janeiro. Early on Tuesday, the Kremlin approved the charges of Russia's nuclear doctrine, setting out new conditions under which the country would consider its use of arsenal. It now says an attack from the non-nuclear state, if backed by a nuclear power, would be treated as a joint assault on Russia. Commenting on these charges, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said since the beginning of its war of aggression against Ukraine, Russia has sought to coerce and intimidate both Ukraine and other countries around the world through irresponsible nuclear rhetoric and behavior. But what do you call this? What do you call this? You've been poking the bear. You know that it's a nuclear superpower. You know this is going to happen. You've been warned about this for many years, since way after the Cold War. I would say even in the 90s, they were warning about a situation like this. And you went forward with it anyway. So, irresponsibility also plays onto people like Matthew Miller here. He added that the U.S. has not seen any reason to change its own nuclear posture, but would continue to call on Russia to stop bellicose and irresponsible rhetoric. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also described the move as irresponsible rhetoric, adding that was not going to deter our support for Ukraine. Ukraine has already been using ATACMS in Russia-occupied areas of its own territory for more than a year. The missiles can hit targets at a range up to 300 kilometers or 186 miles and are difficult to intercept. Kiev is now able to strike deeper into Russia using the missiles, including around the Kitz region, where Ukrainian forces hold more than 1,000 square kilometers of territory. Ukrainian and U.S. officials reportedly expect a counter-offense in the region. In a statement, Russia's defense ministry said the strike had been launched at 3:25, assuming that's a.m. A fire caused by falling debris from one of its missiles was quickly extinguished, and there were no casualties, it said. Ukraine's military earlier confirmed that had struck an ammunition warehouse in the Russian region of Bryansk, but it did not specifically specify whether ACMs had been used. It said they attacked on a depot around 100 kilometers from the border near the town of Karachev, had caused 12 secondary explosions. So this is a map that they give. This is from the BBC, continuing on this article, of the impact of these missiles that are coming in. And as you can see here, you can see they have it marked out where there's Russian military bases, air forces around the Russian region. You see there's the Bryansk region on top of North Ukraine. And you see that in red, that is the current where Russia controls parts of the Ukraine. So you can see that's in the Donbass region, that's in the Donetsk, that's in the Crimea region. All these regions where Russian-based Ukrainians, a lot of ethnic Russians live in these territories, and this whole kind of conflict revolves around their safety and stability because they respect more of Russia. They want to join with the Federation of Russia after Ukraine constantly caused civil war. They have bombed a lot of this region. They've kicked them out of their own territory. So a lot of this is the fact that Russia came in to defend this region and cultivize it. They even stated that we can have a peace deal if you give up this portion and Crimea. But Ukraine, along with NATO allied countries like the United States, Canada, and European nations, think of this as an opportunity to cultivize enough people to use Ukraine as cannon fodder to break apart Russia. And it turns out it's not working. It's not working at all. Russia's economy is exploding. The Russian ruble is now the top domination currency in the world right now, and they're not backing down. They're not backing down. All this talk about how Ukraine needs to win this war, right now Ukrainians are absolutely getting annihilated by this. There's generations and generations of people in Ukraine that have died and suffered and just completely been wiped out because of this ongoing proxy war that started back in 2014 when we overthrew the government by people like Victoria Nuland, by Antony Blinken, by Jake Sullivan, by people in the EU, by people in the CIA. They overthrow the Ukrainian government. They brought in Zelensky, this actor, to make kind of a peace campaign to install himself as a ruler, and now just this warlord creature, and surround himself with a bunch of neo-Nazis, which every single mainstream outlet reported on. Every single mainstream outlet reported on this extensively until Russia decided to step in. Russia said, enough's enough. You have broken the straw. We are coming in to defend the ethnic Russians living in Ukraine that you've screwed over for many years. There's a lot at stake with this. And now the fact that you have kind of these two empires, you have a lot of the Western Hemisphere align themselves with Russia and their alignment. Again, it's not a hyperbole that this could eventually lead into catastrophic damage beyond expectation. And you can see right there just the impact of it. So this is what Vladimir Putin had to say about this. Just hearing the other side of the situation, because everyone still regurgitates, he's a dictator, he's an overlord, and this is all his fault. But listen to what he has to say about the current situation and how having Biden and the EU allowing Zelensky to open fire into Russia, what's that going to cost? Listen to this.
Происходит попытка подмены понятий, потому что речь не идет о разрешении или запрете киевскому режиму наносить удары по российской территории. Он и так наносит с помощью беспилотных летательных аппаратов и другими средствами, но когда речь идет об использовании высокоточного оружия большой дальности западного производства, это совершенно другая история. Дело в том, что я уже об этом говорил, и любые эксперты это подтвердят и у нас, и на Западе. Наносить удары современными высокоточными системами большой дальности западного производства украинская армия не в состоянии. Она не может этого делать. Это возможно только с использованием.
So what he's stating there, and if you've been following along the subtitles, I'm sorry, I should have read it out for people, but I didn't. last minute decision on that front. He's stating that a lot of this ammunition, a lot of the aid that Ukraine is getting right now is coming from the West. It's coming from the United States. It's coming from Canada. And all this military-grade weaponry, a lot of these Ukrainians can't even use. And it's not because they are untrained to attack militarily. It's because when you manufacture ammunition in Western countries that predominantly speak English, and you're giving them to a country that doesn't speak English, that is going to be causing a lot of havoc. So these people that are receiving this weaponry sent over this country in the means of defense can't even use it. Can't even use it because they don't speak the language in order to operate it. And that's what Vladimir Putin is even saying about this, that these Ukrainian armies that are trying to fight back against my army aren't able to use the weapons being sent by the West. So it just seems like an absolute chaotic situation. It just seems like it just seems like a lose-lose situation that we're sending our tax dollars, we're draining out our economies to send over to Ukraine so that they can defend themselves, but we're giving the weapons that they can't even figure out how to use. So there's more of this. Listen to this.
Разведданных со спутников, которыми Украина не располагает. Это данные только со спутников или Евросоюза, либо Соединенных Штатов, в общем, с натовских спутников. Это первое. Второе, и очень важное, может быть.
And he also says about the satellites. The satellites only has imaging and data from the West, from European nations, from United States, from Canada, from the Western Hemisphere. That's not going to work as well in a battle of defeat if it's Eastern territories. That, again, this just seems like it's such a, what do you, like, I don't know the word to say, but just an absolute lose-lose situation. Like, we're draining our economy to send over to Ukraine so that they can defend themselves, and they can't even use the ammunition and military gear that we provide for them.
Ключевое заключается в том, что полетные задания в эти ракетные системы могут, по сути, вносить только военнослужащие стран НАТО. Украинские военнослужащие делать этого не могут. И поэтому речь идет не о том, чтобы разрешать украинскому режиму наносить удары по России этим оружием или не разрешать. Речь идет о том, чтобы принять решение о том, что страны НАТО напрямую участвуют в военном конфликте или нет. Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если...
So, what he's saying there is that because of the alignment, because of the fact that we aggressively, a lot of the NATO countries have been just siphoned into this proxy war, even without the public support, that that's why they propagandize people and censor people, that this was going to directly cause an affliction war between the West and Russia. And it's exactly what people like Professor John Mearshire has said about this, what Jeffrey Sachs has said about this, what people, the entire span of understanding these two dominant powers, the United States and Russia. Nothing good is going to come out of it if the United States goes to war with Russia. Nothing good is coming out of this. But they try to use Ukraine as this kind of middleman to say, hey, we're going to just fight Russia, but use you guys as the sacrifice. We're going to use you guys as cannon fodder, as pawns to go fight these people. And look at what's happened. Ukraine is on its deathbed. It's on its last limbs. The Russian economy is not collapsing as we were promised by people like Joe Scarborough and MSNBC and CNN and CBC and all these outlets. They've been telling us that Russia's on its last limb. No, Ukraine's on its last limbs. That's why they siphoned a lot of our federal resources to continue advancing this war. And as they've always predicted, this is something that the intelligence agencies, that the military industrial, they've wanted to go to war with Russia. Ever since the end of the Cold War, they've always wanted to go to war with Russia. They just need to find an opportunity to do so. Hey, let's overthrow the democratic leader in Ukraine, take over that country, take over the resources, train a bunch of neo-Nazis, and use them as the first wave. And now you have generations completely died off in Ukraine because of this. And it's just an absolute farce. It's an absolute catastrophe. There's no light way to say this. There is no light way to say this. I try to be optimistic in certain situations, but like seeing the catastrophic damage this is going to cause, I can't. I really can't. So, here, Russian President Putin signs new nuclear doctrine allowing Moscow to use nuclear weapons in response to U.S. green light for Ukraine to be able to use its long-range missiles against Russia. So, congratulations, folks. Congratulations. The Gen Z, the millennials, now we can unite together in the possibility that our fate is now being jeopardized by a bunch of out-of-control psychopaths, these sociopaths that want to blow up the entire planet and escalate us into nuclear warfare, which if the world goes kaboom, everything else doesn't matter. And they've been warning about this for a long while. They've been warning and telling people that, and I've been telling people this, that you cause this much escalation, it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. You keep poking that bear thinking that's going to defend something, that we're going to, gain back the democracy of Ukraine or any shit like that. No, it's going to lead directly into the path of nuclear warfare. And once you hit that mark, that's it. Humanity is over. Everything else is garbage. There's no need to talk about the LGBTQ or trans rights or social issues or the left versus right. None of that matters anymore. Once kaboom happens, it's over. You're done. So this is the cause and effect of people like Joe Biden, the Democratic establishment, the deep state establishment of the United States, and pretty much the global cabal of masterly criminals, because they're so petrified of what is known as the Trump effect happening, where people are rising up, they're seeing openly how disgusting, how revolting the system that they've been captured, how it's really operating, how it's going against the grain, how it's going against people and their whims, how it's going against national interests, and they're done with it. They're sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of responding to the WEF and Klaus Schwab and Alex Soros, and they're sick and tired of this. They're sick and tired of the system that is used to oppress people for many decades. And rather than responding accordingly to, for example, Trump's victory in the United States and just kind of come to terms with it, they're going to full out annihilation mode. Which that is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy to think about it.